DJ Moore still had 2 years left on his contract at a really low cap number for the Chicago Bears. And even still, Ryan Poles extending Moore and giving him a big pay raise is still a really smart business move for the long-term future of this team.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on all of your favorite social media platforms, including the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. On the show today, we break down the DJ Moore contract extension, a huge deal. I think the biggest deal in terms of per year average that the Chicago Bears have ever handed out. We'll look at why the Bears did this now, even though DJ Moore still had 2 years left on his deal at a really affordable number for a wide receiver. They're just choosing to pay him more right now than they would have had to otherwise, despite there not really being any sort of public demands for a new contract or anything too crazy like that. We'll also look at how the money works in this deal so that the Bears were really smart about how they structured this, adding the years and changing some of the guarantees and the money to really protect themselves while also rewarding DJ Moore. And then we'll take a closer look at what this could mean for the short and long-term future of Keenan Allen with the Chicago Bears as he enters the last year of his deal on an expensive wide receiver contract. But I think this DJ Moore news, I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, but it certainly wasn't a contract extension that we thought was bound to happen. It wasn't like on the cusp of happening or something we've been waiting for the day that they were going to announce it. But it's something that, sure, maybe in the back of your mind, it's something they could have been working on. But for the Bears to do this sort of now was striking because Moore is under contract for this season and he's under contract for next season at one of the best prices for a wide receiver anywhere in football. His cap hit for the Chicago Bears this season is just a hair over $16 million. And almost none of that money was guaranteed. And next year, same cap hit, just a hair over $16 million. Like, he is a clear number one wide receiver, 1,000-yard receiver type. And when you look at like how much the team is spending on him this year, I mean, he's just ahead of Allen Lazard this season and just behind Cortland Sutton and just behind where CD Lamb is right now, while he is currently wanting a contract. So, I mean, he is well outside the top 15 in terms of how much cash the cap hit a wide receiver is having. It's actually just outside of the top 15, but outside of the top 12 in terms of how much a wide receiver is going to cost, despite being a true number one and a difference maker in this Chicago Bears offense. So why add 4 more years and $110 million on it? Why not enjoy the great steal of a contract he was right now? And I think there's a few obvious reasons here that come with signing DJ Moore at this point, that he is going to need to get a new contract extension at some point anyway. Likely next offseason, right? When he would be entering the last year of his deal, that tends to be when most often teams engage in these types of negotiations. It's why we've seen CD Lamb in these negotiations with the Dallas Cowboys this offseason. You've seen Brandon Ayuk now request a trade from the San Francisco 49ers. T. Higgins is on a franchise tag situation and, kind of not super happy with where his contract is. That is the time when wide receivers start to need money. And the longer you wait to pay a wide receiver who's good and young, like DJ Moore, the more that price tag is going to go up. The salary cap is going to go up next offseason, some amount, we don't know. Other wide receivers are going to get signed, some amount that will raise the market. And most importantly, all those guys that I just mentioned, Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, by this time next year, within the next 12 months, certainly by early free agency next year, all of those guys will get new contracts, whether they go to another team in free agency, whether they sign with their current team, or whether they're traded the way Brandon Ayuk has requested a trade. Those guys are all going to get new deals. And they're all going to get deals at the top of the wide receiver market. And so, yes, Justin Jefferson kind of reset the wide receiver market earlier this offseason. When the when the Vikings gave him a $140 million deal over what I think it ended up being 110 total guaranteed on there. I mean, making him far and away the highest paid wide receiver in football. 4 years, $140 million a year. DJ Moore was not going to get a Justin Jefferson level contract, but Amon-Ra St. Brown got a new deal, I believe, as well. 4 years, 120 and change on there. Tyreek Hill's on a 4-year, $120 million deal. So DJ Moore slots in just under that. But guys like CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins are going to be pushing those numbers up. Again, they're not going to get Justin Jefferson per se, but they're going to slot even higher. And the more of those guys that get bigger deals, the more money DJ Moore is going to look around and say, yeah, that's what I want. I want to be paid as much as those guys. So the Bears were able to lock him in before those other guys get paid. And now those other guys will use DJ Moore's contract as leverage for them. And so they're locking in a lower rate now by refinancing with DJ Moore's contract, rather than waiting and doing it in a couple of years and having to pay that much more money. There's also some intricacies in the structuring of the guarantees here that I want to get into a little bit that also makes sense for why they wanted to do this now. But when you think about where the Bears are in the team building process, this is the time to pay non-quarterback stars, because Caleb Williams is as cheap as he's going to be through the course of his career. Assuming he plays well enough to get a second contract, he's going to get one of these, well, by then it's going to be even bigger than what Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa, these $55+ million deals. We're going to be looking at $60+ million a year deals. So while he is only about $10 million a year on his current contract, I think it's 4 years, $39 million, and only costs like $7 million this year, the Bears have a lot of other room to pay all these other players. So when you can take that money now while your quarterback is at a cost-controlled price and invest that in locking in DJ Moore for 6 more years from now, I mean, including this year, I guess it's 5 additional years beyond this year. This is the time to pay those players so that you're not having to have that difficult conversation later on about, okay, we have to pay Caleb, so then, how much, who can you afford to keep? And it's certainly like what happened with the Chiefs and Mahomes, where they had to let Tyreek Hill go once Patrick Mahomes' contract got so high. They kept Travis Kelce, but you couldn't keep all the big weapons. So pay the great weapons now, lock them in, and also, hey, send a message to the rest of your team and the rest of the NFL that if you come to the Chicago Bears and you are the type of player they want on the field, the type of pro they want in the locker room and off the field, and that you're an ascending talent, they not only will they pay you, but they'll pay you like early, right? This was not a guy who was about to hit free agency like Jalen Johnson that gets franchise tagged and then extended. This is like, no, we're rewarding you extra early. They could have just ridden out DJ Moore for $16 million this year and had a steal and tried to ride him out next year for $16 million and saved a lot of money over those 2 years compared to what they're adding on with this contract extension. But it sends a message to the team and the rest of the NFL that the Bears pay their players and reward their own and incentivizes players to come and trust them that, hey, I know Ryan Poles is going to take care of me. If I work hard and I do my part for this team, they will take care of me. And it absolutely sends a very positive message that way. From the Bears' standpoint, structuring it the way they did and doing it now also gives Ryan Poles some more flexibility in the long-term future, and structured this in a way where DJ Moore gets a bunch of money, but the Bears aren't going to be overly burdened by the escalation of the contract over the next few years. So we'll get into some of the numbers and why financially this was a smart approach for Ryan Poles to take next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Gametime, the best way to get tickets for all of your favorite live events. I use Gametime all the time. I've got the app on my phone. It's how I get tickets to go see, it's concert season for me right now. I'm seeing Three Dog Night later this week. I'm seeing Primus this week. Next week, I'm going to go see Blink 182 as well. And I got all my tickets through Gametime. Because with Gametime, I can see my view from my seat on the app. So I know exactly what I'm going to pay for, what I'm going to get when I buy my tickets. And they also have all-in pricing. So I know exactly how much those tickets are going to cost, and I don't get any added fees at the end of the checkout process that makes them cost way more than I thought they would. So whether it's concerts, comedy shows, Bears games, basketball games, baseball games all summer long, you can get it all with Gametime. And that's why they say it helps you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The Chicago Bears could have guaranteed themselves the lowest price on DJ Moore by just letting him play out the last 2 years on his current contract. He is absolutely a steal this year and an even better deal next year with no real guaranteed money, a bunch of flexibility at the end of this contract so that if, heaven forbid, something went wrong, the Bears aren't locked into DJ Moore, or if if Rome Odunze or whatever in the future changes, they could have just ridden out these next 2 years of Moore at a really affordable price for a wide receiver of his caliber and maybe spent that money at other positions. But they structured this new extension in a particularly interesting way. So if you look at the remainder of his current deal, you go to our friends at overthecap.com. DJ Moore do $16.05 million this year, $16.05 million next year, and only $1 million of this year's salary is guaranteed and none of next year's salary is guaranteed. He's got a roster bonus that would kick in, but essentially almost no guaranteed money left on this contract. And obviously if you're a player like DJ Moore, or any player in the NFL, really, you want as much guaranteed money as possible because, again, the Bears could cut you and they don't have to pay you almost any of that $16 million. So he's got an incentive to want to make a deal that's going to get him more guaranteed money. And so the way the Bears worked this out with DJ Moore is interesting. So it's a 4-year, $110 million contract extension that adds 4 years on top of the 2 years that he's got already. But that 4-year 110 comes with, I want to say it was around 80 and change million dollars guaranteed, but it guarantees the remaining years on the contract still and then adds more money on top of that. So by guaranteeing the $16 million over the next 2 years and adding, I'm sure they're going to add some money to those cap hits, you're not guaranteeing the later years of this contract extension. And so it's going to add on 4 years that are almost fully guaranteed. But when those 4 years, when the guarantees start is right now, instead of at the end of the current 2 years left on his current contract. So it's not like they're just taking 4 years at $110 million and just sticking that on the end of what is currently there, but they're kind of meshing it into what's left on the deal so that you're adding 4 years, but really only 2 of the added years are going to be fully guaranteed. A friend of the show, Brad Spielberger, who's a salary cap expert who, I guess he did leave Pro Football Focus. He's now the director of football administration for Grand Central Sports Management, but he did a great job of breaking this down on Twitter. Essentially, the next 2 years, DJ Moore is owed $32.1 million. You guarantee that money, and then they're adding $50.5 million in new guarantees on top of that. So only out of the 4 years they're adding to this contract, only $50 million across those 4 years is fully guaranteed. And so that essentially will guarantee the first new year and most of the salary of the second new season. But essentially, on this 4-year extension, the last 2 years are not going to be guaranteed, just like they are on his current contract. So essentially it's kind of like you took the 2 years left on his current deal and moved those to the end and stuck 4 years where he is now with different salary numbers. But essentially you're guaranteeing his salary this year, next year, and the 2 years after that. The next 4 years, his salary is going to be guaranteed. But then the 2 extra years are not guaranteed, just like his contract now has the last 2 years not guaranteed. With the extension, the last 2 years are not guaranteed. So they're absolutely locked into DJ Moore for the next 4 seasons. And that's great. But they're not locked into him for 6. He added 4 years to the current 2-year contract. They weren't really locked into him for these 2 years. So instead they said, hey, we're going to guarantee you this year. We're going to guarantee you next year. And we're going to add 2 more guaranteed years to that contract. And then the last 2 years after that will not be guaranteed, because the Bears are essentially saying, hey, you're 27 years old. We want to guarantee your money at age 27, at age 28, at age 29, and age 30. But for the 31 and 32 in this contract, we don't want to be locked in on guaranteeing you $27.5 million a year. Essentially, that's what the 410 divided by 4, $27.5 million a year is what's being added onto that. But some of that money, I think, is going to be added to this year and next year. I don't think his cap hit's going to stay exactly the same the next 2 years, and then you just add all the money on the end of that. Like, we'll see exactly how they space this out. We don't have the full contract numbers, but I think it's really smart for the Bears to essentially only add 2 guaranteed years onto this deal, because we knew DJ Moore wasn't going anywhere this year. We knew he wasn't going to go anywhere next year. So it's really only 2 more years that they're locking themselves into DJ Moore. We're adding 4 total years to the contract, so they'll have the same flexibility they were enjoying now before this extension. They're going to get to enjoy again in 4 seasons after 4 years of DJ Moore's prime. And then at that point, DJ Moore will be entering, again, age 31, 32 seasons. And then they can decide then, much like they decided now to give him a big extension, they can have that second decision point later on, but not be locked into him for those slightly past your prime ages, although he should still be a great receiver at 31 to 32. That's still younger than where Keenan Allen is right now. And all throughout this process, they lock in another one of Caleb Williams' weapons for the duration of Caleb Williams' rookie contract. Because now you've got DJ Moore under contract until 2029. Isn't that crazy? 2029, I think, will be the last year of his deal, because you're adding 4 more years onto a current contract that ends in 25, so that gets you to 29. Rome Odunze's rookie contract will have a 5th-year option in 2028. Cole Kmet's current extension takes him through 2027. Obviously, then Caleb Williams' 5th-year option would take you to 2028 as well. And even DeAndre Swift, when you talk about Bears weapons and how long they're under contract, you got 3 years of him through 2026. So at the very least, you've got your 2 top weapons locked in for the next 4 years, plus your tight end is locked in for the next 3 years, and a running back locked in for the next 2 years, not even including this year, I suppose. This core of weapons around Caleb Williams is set, and it's not going to be such a drastic hindrance to the Chicago Bears still signing players. This is what you were giving yourself salary cap flexibility for. This is what the Bears have been saving up for, is making sure that you got the quarterback and you've got weapons locked in for the quarterback that aren't going to go anywhere, that he can continue to grow with DJ Moore and form that really strong connection throughout the duration of his rookie contract. And then once you get towards the end of Caleb's rookie contract, you'll be at the end of DJ Moore's contract, at Rome Odunze's contract, Cole Kmet's contract. And then you can kind of figure, okay, where is the franchise? What other weapons have they acquired since then? Right? It's just nice to know that all of these young 27 and under players are locked in for the next 2 or 3 seasons. So your offensive pieces are not going anywhere. The only one that could go somewhere, and it's probably not going to last all of Caleb Williams' contract no matter what, is Keenan Allen, a veteran wide receiver who is also looking for a nice big contract extension at age 32, and might be looking at DJ Moore's contract going, hey, can I get one of those? Why haven't I gotten one of those yet? And maybe wondering can they afford to pay DJ Moore, or can they afford to pay Keenan Allen a big contract if they just handed this one to DJ Moore? We'll take a look at the implications for the veteran receiver now that Moore got his big deal next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. And FanDuel is here to help make your summer be its best. Even though there's not as much sports on the calendar on the TV, although Hall of Fame game, football season is just right around the corner. But with FanDuel, you can bet on baseball, you can bet on tennis, you can bet on the Olympics, and you can already bet ahead on the football season. Bears-Titans week 1. Caleb Williams' passing yards as a rookie over under, Rome Odunze's receiving yards, Matt Eberflus's Coach of the Year odds, and so much more. And the best part is, all summer long, FanDuel is hooking up every customer with a boost or a bonus every day. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. The Bears now gave DJ Moore a contract that averages $27.5 million a year over 4 years on the extension there. It'll be spread out differently, but that's kind of the way to think it. They made him one of the highest paid wide receivers in football. And so you've got Keenan Allen on the other side, who is also currently one of the highest paid wide receivers in football. And we typically don't think of teams as being able to afford two of the highest paid wide receivers in football. You might be able to get a high paid wide receiver and a high paid tight end and a high paid running back, but not necessarily two number one receivers, at least not for a super long period of time. And so as the Bears lock in DJ Moore and have Rome Odunze on a first-round pick rookie contract, is there room for Keenan Allen beyond this year? Keenan Allen says, yeah, he'd like to get a contract if the numbers are right and is open to that being with the Chicago Bears and is open to negotiating all that stuff. But the numbers got to be right. And the Bears just traded for Keenan Allen 4 months ago. And I imagine as great as Keenan Allen is and has proven himself throughout his career, like the Bears do still want to see it and how it works in this offense, with this quarterback, in this city, and at this stadium. Mainly, I think, because Keenan Allen is 32. And eventually, probably not right now, but eventually, there's going to be more of a drop back, a step down for Keenan Allen in terms of his ability and his production. Now, he's coming off of the most catches he's ever had in a season and the second most yards he's ever had in a season. And I think second most touchdowns he's had in a season. Like, he's coming off of one of the best years of his career. He is not showing signs yet of really slowing down. But Father Time is undefeated. It has to happen eventually. And so you could understand why the Bears would be a little bit hesitant to just say, yep, all right, here you go, 3 years, guaranteed, lock you into it, let's keep you here for a long time. Like, let's take this a little bit slower and see how things goes. I certainly don't think this DJ Moore contract stops them from signing Keenan Allen. I don't think this is a sign that, the Bears are for sure letting Keenan Allen go this offseason because they paid DJ Moore, so that means they're not going to pay Keenan Allen. I don't think that's necessarily the case. It could be, but I don't think this precludes them. They might still decide not to, but if the Bears decide not to pay Keenan Allen, it's not specifically going to be because of the DJ Moore contract. Because when you really think about it, DJ Moore had a $16 million cap hit. We don't know exactly if or what that's going to change to right away, how they structure the money, but even if it went to the full average of the new deal, $27.5 million, essentially he's costing you $9 million more on the extension than he would have otherwise this year. Is that enough? Is $9 million on the salary cap enough to say, you know what, never mind, we don't want to keep Keenan Allen? Because that's really all that changed, right? They're paying another wide receiver about $9 million more, which is not a small amount of money, but it's not like they added another $20 million to this. You know what I mean? Like, Keenan Allen's contract right now is already pretty darn high. And I don't expect his next deal to drastically increase that. Keenan Allen's cap hit this year is $23.1 million. It's why the Chargers traded him. They tried to work out a long-term deal to try and lower that money. I think they asked him to take a pay cut. He declined. The Bears said, we will gladly pay Keenan Allen $23.1 million. I don't think you're going to see Keenan Allen's next contract pay him what DJ Moore just got, because you're paying for the future of these players just as much as you're paying for what they've done already. It's very likely that Keenan Allen will still get a $20+ million contract on his next deal, but it may only be 1 or 2 years because he's 32. And so, I think given what we talked about with some of the structure of DJ Moore's contract and how Caleb Williams will remain on his rookie deal for 4 or 5 more years now, they can absolutely afford to still give Keenan Allen a contract extension that will match or meet where he wants to be paid and what his value would be. They could easily give Keenan Allen 2 years and $40 million more in that contract, or whatever the number ends up being. Maybe it's higher than that. Maybe I'm discounting him too much for his age, but you're not going to pay him market value. He's not going to get $30 million. He's not going to get the 27.5 the DJ Moore guy. It's going to be something a little bit more manageable for a shorter duration of the contract. So I think the Bears have a window here where they can afford to keep paying Moore and Keenan Allen at market level wide receiver price. They don't think they could do another 4-year, $110 million extension for Keenan Allen. I think they could do 2 years, 50. Something like that is absolutely well within their financial well-being. So I think it's more a question of, let's see what Keenan Allen does this year and get a sense for how well this all works together. And then also, I wouldn't surprise me if the Bears and Keenan Allen have a difference in where they see his market value because he is still playing at a really high level, but teams are not going to want to lock in a 32-year-old wide receiver at a market value contract if they think he could decline in that production, and you want to be paying top dollar for less than top production. And so I can envision a scenario here where Ryan Poles has a certain number in his mind. We'll pay Keenan Allen up to $25 million a year or whatever the number is. And maybe Keenan Allen says, yeah, DJ Moore just got 27 and a half. Keenan Allen had more yards than DJ Moore last season. Keenan Allen had more production all around. He said, I'm a better wide receiver than Moore. I'm a better wide receiver than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Maybe he would think this, right? Than some of these other guys that just got big contracts. I'm going to go to the market and try and get a $30 million a year deal. And the Bears might say, all right, go. Try it out. And, we'd love to have you back. But we've seen how Ryan Poles approaches free agency with outside players. He'll negotiate with Danielle Hunter. He'll negotiate with Mike McGlinchey. He'll negotiate with the big name contracts. But once they get out of his price range and their contract value gets too high in negotiations, the Bears back out. So we're going to Saquon Barkley, same kind of thing. The Bears drive a price up. And then they say, all right, that's, we set our own limits. And once that limit's hit, that's as far as we'll go. And Ryan Poles is not afraid to say, I'm out. Sorry. Wish you best of luck. And I could imagine him taking that same approach with Keenan Allen, where he says, listen, Keenan, we're willing to pay you this amount. And if you can go get more than that, more pun not intended, if you can go get more money than that in free agency, by all means, go for it. We loved you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for playing. But they could make a bet that, hey, I don't know if anybody's going to pay a 32, he might be 33 by the time he hits free agency next year. Are they going to give a 33-year-old wide receiver a long-term deal for $30 million a year? Doesn't feel that likely. And so if Ryan Poles can kind of calculate the number that works for him and make it a fair offer to Keenan Allen, and then if Allen wants to test it out there, maybe there's a team that feels like they're that one wide receiver away. Maybe the Jets try and run it back, and they just need a Keenan Allen, and they give him a big short-term contract to try and get that one last piece. And the Bears say, all right, we've got DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. Or maybe Keenan Allen goes out there, and the market isn't as robust as he thought because he's a little bit of an older receiver, and he takes more of the sure thing in a familiar place that he might like a lot in Chicago after a good season here, and ends up, doing another year or two on a shorter term deal where he still gets the cash in, but isn't going to be, locked in. If his play starts to decline, the Bears will have some flexibility there, but they're not going to keep paying a super aging wide receiver late into his career. Some of this may also have to do with how quickly Rome Odunze develops, where if Odunze already as a rookie looks like a 1,000-yard receiver and a stud, maybe Ryan Poles says, well, regardless of the DJ Moore contract, we just don't need to pay Keenan Allen because Odunze already is that guy and DJ Moore is locked in. So, we're just going to roll with those two guys. It was nice to have Keenan as a bridge there and as a big weapon for Caleb as a rookie, but, it's ran its course. It was a rental, and then they move on. I just don't think – I think the decision of what kind of contract Keenan Allen gets from the Chicago Bears next is not predicated on the money DJ Moore just got. It's predicated on what Keenan Allen does this season, what Rome Odunze does this season, and what the rest of the wide receiver market might look like for Keenan Allen. But I don't think this DJ Moore contract extension affects what the Bears will or will not be willing to pay Keenan Allen to keep him around on this team in the long-term future. I'd love to hear what you think about this DJ Moore contract extension, how Ryan Poles is approaching this, and what it might mean for Keenan Allen. Let us know in the comments here in the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, or you can tweet us at Locked On Bears, or you can even post in the Locked On Bears Facebook group. However you do it, just make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to the podcast, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make us your first listen again tomorrow as we get you ready for the Hall of Fame game. Won't have any starters in it, but we'll look at that decision and who else we should be watching in the Hall of Fame game. So make sure you tune in for that. Then we'll break down the game for you on Friday as well. We're here for you every single day to make sure that each time you tune into Locked On Bears, you get another opportunity to bear down.